Hello, friends. I am David Heron, and I'm the Green Transportation Examiner. I do blogging via longtailpipe.com and also writing other information through greentransportation.info, primarily about electric vehicles and clean energy systems. My congressman, Representative Ro Congressman, held a town hall meeting the other day, and several of the questions had to do with climate change and energy policy, and I thought they would be interesting. So, without further ado, let's see what he had to say. Thank you for watching.
Okay, we are going to go to Sachin from Santa Clara, and his question is on climate change, specifically on price on carbon emission.
Hello, Congressman Khanna. How are you? Speaking of foreign policy, thank you very much for your work on the Yemen War Powers Resolution. That was very important.
Yes.
Thank you also for Medicare for All. But my question is about climate change. Antarctica just recently reached 65 degrees Fahrenheit. The ocean temperatures are 3 to 5 degrees warmer than usual. We're seeing tremendous melting. And last year, the Pentagon commissioned the U.S. War College to study the impacts of climate change. And the conclusion was that the U.S. military could very well fail in its mission to protect Americans, given all the impacts of climate change. So I know you're a supporter of the Green New Deal. Can you talk about whether that has a chance of passing and why we need a wartime effort and what you think a price on carbon would do to reduce carbon emissions?
I appreciate the question. I appreciate your advocacy for tackling climate change for many, many years. I believe we have to lead in massive investments in solar, in wind, in renewable energy, in electric vehicles, in high-speed rail, in buildings that are energy efficient. And not only is this going to be good for tackling climate change, but it's actually going to create millions of new jobs. And Secretary Kerry and I had an op-ed about a couple months ago in the New York Times saying, we're falling behind China. I mean, why would we want China to lead in the green energy race and have the energy industries of the future? Why wouldn't we want those industries to be here? Why wouldn't we want those jobs to be here? And of course, our district is going to be an incredible leader in the push for renewable energy. California is going to be an incredible leader. We need federal policy. And I do believe that a price on carbon is critical. I mean, you should have to pay for the pollution you're causing to the world. It's not a complex idea. And it shouldn't hurt the working class or middle class. It should be the big companies, corporations, that are paying that tax so that you can incentivize faster development of solar and wind and the renewable energies. And so it has to be an extraordinary priority, a high priority. I do give credit to people like Tom Steyer and others. This isn't a political comment, but just in terms of anyone who's advocating making this a high priority for the Congress and the next president. We're running out of time, and I appreciate the question.
Okay, that was the first question I wanted to cover. It had to do with the price. The thrust of the question, as I understood it, had to be about the establishing a price on carbon and whether there's a chance of the Green New Deal passing. And I noticed in the answer that while Representative Khanna said lots of great things and wonderful things, and I totally agree with what he said, he did not answer the questions that were asked. So, okay, whatever. That's what politicians do, right? Okay, so one thing I wanted to say is about the question of whether the Green New Deal is going to pass in the U.S. Uh, who knows? There's strong forces fighting against that kind of thing in the U.S., but I've learned that in Europe, in the European Union, there is a strong plan for that's called a Green New Deal for Europe, that is underway. It's already been passed, and they've got really aggressive goals. that they're working on accomplishing over the next 10, 15 years. And, if Europe is able to follow through with what they're planning, it will be a really positive change in the type of energy system and vehicles and all kinds of things that are really good. And I should be doing some more coverage on that topic because I'm really impressed with what their goals are. I'm worried about whether they can actually pull it off financially, but I'm raising this because there is such a dichotomy or contrast between what's happening in Europe and what's happening in the U.S. In the U.S., it's like there's even doubt to begin with that there's anything. They keep calling it a hoax when it's not a hoax, clearly not a hoax, and there is a pressing need to do something about of the same things that Representative Khanna just said. So it's like night and day between what the European Union is doing and what the U.S. is doing and what some other countries are doing. It's so astonishing.
Question is from Larry from San Jose, and it's about energy.
Oh, fine. Thank you, Congressman. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Larry.
Okay, and this is feeding off the last comment. It has to do with climate change, but energy policy, you can't talk about climate change without saying, what are you going to when you get off fossil fuels? So, I mean, our modern society is all totally dependent on energy. And it's kind of like pumping the brakes. My concern is with Bernie Sanders' strict New Deal that he's approaching, and I mention it to you because you're co-chair with his campaign. I give this real-world example from late May, early June in the UK in 2018. The UK suffered 13 straight days of very little or no wind at all. And the shortfall for their wind farms, onshore and offshore, was 1.5 million megawatt hours. To use batteries like Tesla's PowerPack 2, which is a commercial battery that's available today, that has 200 kilowatt hours. Sorry for the numbers. I'm applying my Santa Clara graduate degree in engineering. So, but the numbers, because of that, it's 1/5 of a megawatt hour. You need 7.5 million units of Tesla PowerPack 2s. Each one of them goes for $160,000. And that's not counting installation and yada yada yada. So you're looking at $1.2 trillion to cover you for a shortfall of 2 weeks. That's no guarantee that it couldn't be longer the next time. You get the picture. So my concern is that in reality, as an engineer, I look and say, yes, it would be wonderful to have all of this green energy, but you have to face the physical and realities of life. And it doesn't appear, based on the debate comments, that the campaign has quite gotten it yet of what, it isn't nirvana. And then this was also brought up for anybody who watches Fareed Zakaria on his show on CNN just this week. He brought up the same concern. So my request is that you at least carry this message back to the campaign and hopefully, I'm sorry to take so long.
I appreciate it. I mean, look, there's no doubt that we need not just investment in solar and wind, but massive investment in storage to figure out how we're going to have the next generation of storage, especially when you have peak moments in the use of electricity and how we're going to have that kind of investment so you can store the wind and solar. Right now, that's not economical. And I am of the view, as is the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, that because of that, we have to be considering reasonable uses of nuclear and reasonable uses of all of the options until we get there. And that's, my view is we have to look at what the science and Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change recommends, have massive investments in solar, wind, and in storage, but keep our options open and knowing that that's not going to be an overnight solution. So that's what I I think I can convey it to the senator, but, that's certainly my view.
Okay, so this was the last question that I was able to record. There was a third question, but my camera ran out of space, so I couldn't record it. In any case, I thought this was a good question, and again, uh, the Representative Khanna didn't really answer. He said good things. The question was kind of long, so the way I summarized it was that wind and solar are intermittent. We know that. The sun sets every day, so therefore we don't get solar powered at night, and also there's days when the wind doesn't blow. Now he happened to have some data about a long period of wind outage or no wind in England or Great Britain. He said 13 days of no wind. Hence, there was a shortfall in production of wind energy during that period. And so, therefore, he suggested that it's not feasible to build enough uh, energy storage systems to handle such a shortfall. And so, what he's doing is, in the question, is repeating a critique of renewable energy that's been around for a long time, which is uh, because of the intermittency, they cannot possibly work to supply the energy needs of society. And I thought it was interesting, uh, a, a cue as to where he's coming from when he called it the strict New Deal rather than the Green New Deal. So I'm suspecting that this person is coming from a standpoint of maybe climate change is a hoax, or maybe and that possibly it's being used as a means of certain people to get rich off of fake solutions to fake crisis or whatever. Because there are people that are pushing that. I don't know if this guy is or not. It's just when he uses a phrase strict New Deal instead of Green New Deal, that's a clue, that's the word, clue as to where he's coming from. So let's talk about the answer to um, energy storage and how it helps. Is that, okay, one thing is it's not useful to rely on a single source of energy. So that means society would not be running itself solely on wind power. There would be a mix of various power sources, and that's partly what Ro Khanna said. Ro Khanna brought in nuclear, which, geez, I don't want that. But anyway, uh, um, I don't want nuclear because of safety issues. Okay. First off, you don't rely on a single source of energy. Um, that means if the wind doesn't blow, the sun still rises, and there could be wave energy and all kinds of other things besides just wind. And the person asking the question focused solely on wind, and so therefore was able to make it look like the solution cannot work. And so if you have a combination of several sources that if one of them has a shortfall, the other ones are still working, and then you don't have to have as much energy storage systems as what this guy was suggesting. That's the bottom line. Have enough variety so that you're not dependent on the wind blowing, or you're not dependent on the sun shining, because there's cloudy days as well. And so therefore, having a variety of sources of energy reduces the amount of energy storage that is required. And so his straw man of it requiring 13 or 14 days of energy storage, that's not necessary. But we also have to understand that the people around us haven't always thought through the issues, and there is a period of change underway, and so uh, whether this guy asking that question was politically motivated and had carefully thought out something that would undermine uh, clean energy. There are a lot of people asking similar questions, and it's not always the case that they are, uh, most of them are simply not educated enough about the actualities. The theory that that guy presented is something that can appeal to people who haven't thought through the issues very well. Bottom line about the meeting was that it was very positive, and every time I listen to Representative Khanna talk, I really like what he has to say. Um, and the general thrust of what he says is right on. Even though, yes, he didn't really answer the questions that were asked, he's got the right things that he's saying. So I hope this was helpful. I am David Heron, the Green Transportation Examiner. I write news articles via longtailpipe.com, and I have other related information published on greentransportation.info. It's all about uh, electric vehicles, clean energy technology, and the pressing need to switch the energy system around so that we're not messing the place up. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this helpful. Goodbye.